Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Transforming 45. I'm your host, Lisa Boat. In this podcast, we dive deep into the transformative power of storytelling. I firmly believe that stories have the magical ability to heal, inspire, and connect us. That's why I'm here to bring you the incredible stories of women who have journeyed through life's ups and downs and emerged as their most authentic selves. We'll explore stories of resilience, reinvention, and the courage it takes to embrace change. It's a space where authenticity shines, where the messy and the beautiful moments of life come together to create something truly extraordinary. So, brilliant listeners, get ready for a roller coaster of emotions, a burst of inspiration, and a whole lot of love. Transforming 45 is not just a podcast, it's a movement, a celebration of incredible humans who light up the world. I'm so grateful you are here, and I can't wait to embark on this transformative journey with you. Let's dive in and start transforming together. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Transforming 45. This week, I am thrilled to bring Charmin Moore to the show. She is a registered nurse of 35 years, a digital wealth strategist, the author of Lessons of a Life Coach, and the creator of the new online course, The Abundance Quest. Charm and I met a few weeks ago. We had a fabulous conversation. I know that you're really going to get a lot out of what Charm brings to this conversation. And just to kick things off in full transparency, I started this off by having a full hot flash. So it's going to be spicy and it's going to be great.
Yeah, spicy.
Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. The pleasure is mine. I'm just excited to spend this time with you so we can just create whatever we're going to create.
Yes, we will. All right, Charm, tell me, who are you and how did life introduce you to this version?
So life introduced me to this version probably around the age of 22 when I found myself homeless, living out of my car with a very cute 2-year-old. And I say that that's when I really was introduced to this version, because before that, I was a child of promise. I was in college in the 7th grade, just for different programs. But I was the only one in school that was sent to this program because I had a really high aptitude. And even though I was an inner city kid, there were these adults along the way that saw the greatness. And my parents were immigrants from Jamaica, so they definitely wanted to help this kid find her way. They didn't want this talent that I had to just go by the wayside. They didn't want me to end up on the streets and all that other stuff. So I'm very thankful for some of these guidance counselors and people like that, introduced me to the theater or sent me to Broadway or sent me to college in 7th grade, things like that. So by all case in point, I should have just gone to college, finished college, and had a great life. And that did not happen in that particular order. So as a result, I woke up one day and I'm like, dear God, what actually happened? Like, where am I? How am I going to do this? What's happening? I've got a daughter. I don't have someplace to live. I'm lost. That's what I want to say in this moment. I was lost. So didn't know what I know now about spirit and things like that. Yeah, I was raised in the church, but an intimate relationship I did not have. So everything that happens from that point on, I'm looking back now and seeing how my steps were guided, how spirit was ordering, and how I started navigating. And then as a result of looking back, I started saying to myself, how did I do that? Because I want to be able to repeat that on cue. And I also want to help other people. So first thing that happened, like I said, I had this 2-year-old living out of my vehicle and I needed to get her immunizations. So I went to a health department. That's what you do, because I didn't have any health insurance for her. I went to the health department to get her immunizations. And when I did that, met some ladies there that were asking everybody in the place if they wanted to go to school. Well, I loved school. I'd been to college for 3.5 years. I just had to drop out because I didn't have any more money. So I went I filled out that little form. I got a call, and as a result of that call, I went and did a one of those placement tests that they do. When I did the placement test, I got a call and saying, "Come on in, and let's talk about your scores." When I went into this woman's office, didn't think too much of it. She was sitting at a computer, and she never even looked up from the computer. She didn't even look up at me. She just said, "Come on in and have a seat." She's just typing away, and then all of a sudden, she's still looking at her computer. She never looked at me, and she said to me, "What's going on with you?" So I'm thinking, what a strange question. What does she mean? I said, "I'm sorry," and she goes, "Your scores are so high. What's going on with you? Have you been to college?" So I said, "Well, yes, I've been to college." She goes, "Well, the only thing I can offer you is nursing." She goes, "You're actually so high. That's the only thing I can offer you." And I remember rising up out of my seat because as a kid, all I wanted to do was be a physician. I was not interested in being a nurse ever. In fact, it was icky to me, and all I could think of is that nurses change bedpans. So I wanted nothing to do with nursing. So I politely got out of my seat and said, "Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time." And that was the only time she looked up from her computer, looked me square in the face, and said, "Sit down." Oh, okay. Now, I told you I was 23 maybe. So I was like, I sat back down real fast, like with a quickness. I sat back down because it was shocking. It was like a jolt.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "How dare you? How dare you? You put your nose up at a free education, free books, free tuition, free childcare. How dare you?" She goes, "I can't offer this to anybody. All week long, people have been coming in here, and I can't offer this kind of opportunity to them. And you're going to turn your nose up?" She said, "How dare you?" And she had her envelope that she had been writing on, and she flung it at me across the desk. She said, "Here, take this. Go get your books. Go get your uniforms and show up to class. And don't let me see your face in here again." Like I said, shocked. Like
Mm-hmm.
shocked. I just took the piece of paper off of the desk because she didn't hand it to me nicely or anything. She threw it at me. I
Mm-hmm.
took it, got up, and walked away, left. Now, the story ends with me doing exactly what the woman told me to do. I went, got the books, got the uniforms, went to the school. Tuition was completely paid for. When I walked in the door, they already knew I was coming. I sat in the class that first day of nursing school and remember what Carol Jarvis said to us. She said, "The patient dignity is the first and foremost thing you always want to think about as a nurse. That person, think of yourself as somebody laying in a bed, sick, tired, afraid, anxious, and naked. You have no clothes on, and the whole room is clothed, and they're poking and prodding you." She said, "Think about how you would feel. Always remember to preserve the patient's dignity." And it was just fascinating for me. It was absolutely fascinating. And as a result of that day, I sat there in awe of what she was saying to me, and it resonated with me on such a deep level that at the end of the day, she said, "Now, let me say something to this class." She said, "I'm sure some of you came here because you want to be a nurse. But then I'm sure some of you came here because you know that nurses make a living, a decent living, and you decided, hey, let me just go ahead and do this so I can make a decent living." She said, "For those of you that you made the decision to come to here to be a nurse just so you could make a decent living," she says, "do not come back tomorrow. We don't need you here." She said, "Patients have a tough enough time being ill. The last thing they need is somebody caring for them that doesn't want to really be there for that reason. So just quietly excuse yourself and don't come back to my class." So I'm thinking, oh my God, she knows I didn't get this thing. I didn't want to be a nurse. She knows. Oh my God, what am I going to do? So I went home and I had to, I had a lot of conversations with myself that day. And when I say I went home, what really happened was I met a girl in there in the class that needed a roommate. So she said, "I don't have an extra room." She said, "You'd have to share the bed with me, but I need to pay the rent and I'm in school. And so if you want to come and live with me, we can share the rent. So I actually found a place to live the first day I went to school because I would have been going back to the car.
Mhm.
And my parents had taken my child to help me out. So that's where the Karina was, with my parents. In that one act of that woman hitting me over the head, or the universe hitting me over the head, I had a place to live and I had found a purpose that I didn't know I wanted. And that was the start of how I started coming to this place. I went through nursing school with flying colors. It was easy for me while it was hard for everybody else. It was easy for me. It's a very natural fit. Nursing school is hard, 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 hard. The information was easy. It's the time and the effort and the hours that are grueling. But the information and the education filled my soul. All of the different things, cardiac, every type of system I loved. And as a result of it, I learned that I was able to break down the information and explain it to people. So we would be in class, Miss Jarvis would explain something, cardiac again, and people wouldn't get it. And I would say, well, she'd finish talking and say, well, think about it like this. And I would turn around to the class and I would say, think about it like this. And I would break it down. But what was interesting was she never stopped me. She never interrupted me. She allowed me the space to speak up and kind of reiterate her point and break it down in a way that I felt would make sense to them. To the point where after about 4 weeks in class, she took me aside and she said, listen, she goes, I'm going to tell you that half the class is failing. And I was wondering if you would take the class at the end of the day and anybody that wanted to stay after, you tutored them. She goes, I'll announce it and anybody that wants to stay can stay. And it was a bit of a quandary for me because I was working after school every day and on weekends, right? Trying to get my life together. So I was going to have to give up those 3 hours after school because I went straight after school. I worked from 3 to 7, 4 hours a day, and then weekends. But I gave them up because of the class. I gave them up. I said, and I asked my job if I could work more hours on the weekend so that I could make those hours up. And they did. Like I worked 12s instead.
Mhm.
And I did that and stayed after. And the entire class, as many people that could stay, would stay every day. And we were able to retain every student but one. Everybody graduated but one.
That's amazing and so powerful. And I know there's so much more to your story, but there's a couple of things I want to ask you
Yeah.
before you keep going. And the one of them is the way you portray the woman in your story who said,
Yes.
sit down.
Mhm.
How long did it take you to know that that was actually the universe?
That's what I'm telling you. It took me so long,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It took me a long time. That's why I started with, I had to go back. I was 23 then. I became a life coach at 45. That's why I love this show,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
45 was my transforming year.
Me
It
too,
really
sister.
was. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And so it took me probably till then when I really started getting intentional about co-creating with spirit that I had to think back as to what actually started my journey, what happened. And once I realized that was like the very first time that I could consciously think about that I was really starting to understand that that's when my life started shifting was that very moment. But I was 45.
What did it feel like for you in that moment?
Then
Yeah,
when
then.
she said sit down,
Yeah.
I felt I felt scolded, I felt shamed. I mean, she
Mm.
shamed me.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what it is. She
Yes.
literally shamed me. She
Yes.
shamed me. So I felt shame, embarrassment, shock. I felt all those things in one fell swoop. I felt, boy, this is a very mean person, you know?
Yeah. And the reason I wanted to ask that question was because my moment was very similar. It was a
Mm.
moment of shame. It happened when I was 45, though. So I had a little bit longer view to be able to know that it was the voice of the universe in that moment.
Yes.
Well, maybe not right in that moment when it first
Hmm.
happened, because it was so painful and it
Yes.
was such a shaming experience. It was embarrassing. It was
Yes.
all of the things.
Mhm.
And it can make it really challenging, right? When we're feeling all of those very
Emotions.
human emotions, to be able to take that breath. And I think it's really important for you to express that it can take decades to
It can.
realize
It
what the
can.
moment was. It
Yes.
absolutely can.
Yes. And did. It took years.
Yeah.
And I want to say too that because now it's very simple for me. I know exactly when it's right. I'm like, okay, spirit, what are you trying to teach me in this moment? And I have that, I answer that, I asked that question right then. So I would have had the breakthrough then. But see, that you would have thought that after that experience and I graduated with honors and that life just turned around and was amazing. But that's not what happened. I kept
Mhm.
having a series of these events,
Yes.
and I won't call them unhappy events, but I will call them pretty shocking events, right? I
Hmm.
kept having them until I finally realized that these events are part of my journey, that spirit is teaching me life lessons that I'm supposed to get and understand what they are and do something with them, right? All I did was become a nurse and then start grinding working as a nurse.
Yes.
I didn't get anything past that as a lesson. I didn't realize this was a divine connection. It was a divine connection with that woman. I
Hmm.
didn't look it in the face and say, what do you want me to do with this?
Yeah. That's a really, sorry, I just had one of those little
Mm-hmm.
nudges around that of
Mm-hmm.
the the actual realization of what the
Mm-hmm.
divine connection is. Because when you went from that, you went directly to talking about Carol. Is that her name?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Carol
And
Jarvis. Yes.
Carol Jarvis, and what she
Mm-hmm.
said to you that clearly was so impactful, right?
Yes.
That was the message
Yes.
around being an advocate for dignity.
Yes.
Yes. And that's like from our conversation that we had earlier, I can feel that in you, that is your divine purpose, right? Is being that advocate.
Right.
But
Right.
it takes a lot for us to be able to sometimes make those connections when
Mhm.
we're in a space of scarcity and lack,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely. You can't see.
Yeah,
You
you
can't see.
can't
You
see.
can't hear. You can't see. You can't hear. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, because we're living in that space of fear,
That's right.
right? It is fear that is
Mm.
blocking absolutely everything else.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
100%.
was there a specific event that happened when you were 45 that
Yes.
allowed you to see? Okay, so
Absolutely.
tell me about that. What was that event?
All right. So, a perfect segue. At 45, I had been working on the floor for years and at least got the kids raised. I have two wonderful children, but I was still struggling, still living paycheck to paycheck. So I decided, aha, I'll go and do travel nursing. That's the thing, right? Go do travel nursing where you can see a little bit of the world and make more money. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't interested in seeing anything. I just wanted to make more money. That's all I was interested in. Seeing
Mhm.
the world I could care less about. So, where's the best place you can go make more money? California. They needed nurses. They had a nursing shortage that was just horrible. So, I got myself together, went out to California. And there, the only thing that they wanted to offer you was the night shift. Wasn't used to working the night shift. I'm a
Mhm.
night owl, but I still go to bed around 1. So that's not 7 o'clock in the morning. So, and that's not 12 hours, 7 p to 7 a. But anyway, I didn't think anything of it. I had gone to see my doctor. You had to go get cleared and all that stuff. So I had a little teeny weeny doctor. She was 4'10", Dr. Gregory. And, she did my whole, assessment, said, you're good to go. All right, go to California. So I did. So I'm out there. I'm doing fine for a bit. Then I started feeling ill, but ignored it. And I do mean I started feeling very weird and ill. So muscle aches, joint pain, really serious joint pain. But then the fatigue came. And I didn't pay much attention to that either because I was sleeping, in the mornings. So then the fatigue didn't touch me. And I was wearing scrubs. Didn't realize that I had dropped 15 pounds on this frame. Now, I always weighed 110. So, yeah.
Yeah,
You
that's
just take
significant.
15 pounds off of that. I didn't notice it though, because I was sleeping during the day and I'm wearing scrubs. So yeah, they got a little bit bigger, but I didn't think anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, the fatigue got to be so bad. I ended the contract, right? I did get through the contract and I went home. When I got home, it was very apparent to me when I got on my own scale and I couldn't pick up a jug of milk that something was really wrong. I went to see Dr. Gregory. She did some labs and she was very, very disconcerted. She said, listen, she says, let me talk to my partners because there was 3 female physicians in this practice. So they did more labs and then they came back and said, listen, you got lupus. You got lupus. So let's take more labs. Let's do some more blood work. So they're doing more. And her partners were like, we are 100% sure that she's developed lupus. And I remember Dr. Gregory said, just a second, we will not be speaking this horrible disease over this young woman this day. She said, I will not accept that. I will not accept it. She said, I'm going to do some more labs. She goes, but we won't be speaking that disease over this young woman. And I remember, I'm very emotional thinking about it, thinking I never heard a Western physician speak like this. I'd never heard it. So she said, go home. And she says, I'm drawing your blood, go home. She says, I have some hunches, but I don't want to say. I said, okay. So I went home. And I'm so fatigued now that I have to sit down in the shower. I'm having to have help to the bathroom, help, it was rough. My little girl, my 2-year-old, she's now 28, and back then, and so she was helping to take care of me. Dr. Gregory called me back in and she said, I've got good news and I've got, well, not so good news, but she goes, you do not have lupus. She says, you contracted CMV when you were in California. She said, where were you working on the floor? I said, I was on the transplant floor. She goes, that's exactly where you would get it. She goes, they're immunocompromised. It's easy for them to have CMV. And you're now immunocompromised, working nights out there on the West Coast, not on your own time zone, and sleeping on these, weird hours and not eating because I'm not a big eater anyway. I'm not a foodie. So I would eat 1 meal a day. When I got home from work in the morning, I'd have a big breakfast, go to sleep. And I'd sleep for 12 hours and go back to work. That's all I did. And I did that maybe 5 days a week. So I was doing 60 straight. Now, she said to me, no worries, we're going to treat you. And so they treated me with an antiviral for 12 straight months until I got well. But in that time, I laid in the bed and could not work for months, at least 3 months. Everything started getting behind. All the savings, everything that I had worked for. I had gone out there to make this money, right? Because that's all I cared about. Every dime, every single dime, up in smoke. Because I was having to now go through those. And I'm still in bed. I'm still taking the antivirals and I'm doing the best I can. And I remember just sitting there and lying in bed one day and I said, you know what? What if I can never work again in this field that is a wonderful field, but it's very physical, very, very physical. Mm-hmm. What if I can never work again. What am I going to do? What am I here to do? And I was like, Spirit, what am I here to do? Because by now I knew to go in. I wasn't sure yet. I just still wasn't there, but I go in now. I've been going in for about 4 years. Yeah, about 4 years I've been going in. So I said, what am I here to do? Who am I here to really serve? What am I going to do? Like if I can't work, who am I? Who am I? I asked that question very clearly. Who am I?
Mhm.
I know you didn't bring me this far, and you're just gonna. I can't work anymore. What am I gonna do? Lose my house? Lose my car? What is that? What we're gonna do now? I said, really? Is that what we're gonna do right now? And I said, who am I? And I heard a voice very clearly say, you're a life coach. I said, a life coach? What is that? What is that? I've never heard of it. I thought it was made up in my head. Anyway, I went online and looked it up because I had my computer in my bed. That's all you do, right? And
Mhm.
sure enough, there I was. It said Life Purpose Institute. Take this little quiz. I took the little quiz, and the little quiz said, you have a real propensity to this work. Somebody will call you. I got a phone call. Fern Gorin, she was the founder and CEO of the Life Purpose Institute out there in California.
Mhm.
Just came from there. I knew it was a sign. And she talked to me for a few minutes, and she said, would you like to take the course? And I said, sure. She goes, okay, well, it's $29.95. I said, oh, I don't have that, but thank you so much. And she paused for a minute, and she goes, I want you to take the course anyway. So I'm going to let you take the course, and you just pay me whenever you can. Whenever you can, just pay me whenever you can. I said, really? And she said, really? She goes, I'll send you your manuals. I'll send you a contract, but you just pay whenever you can. And I started taking that course. It was much gentler than the first hit upside the head with the 2x4, but I recognize that as a gift.
Mhm.
This I recognize it as a gift. And the minute I started taking the course, which was a teleclass, so every Tuesday or Thursday you took class, and it was 2 hours, and it was fascinating. But the powerful thing about becoming a life coach is you've got to be coached.
Yes.
You don't get to coach everybody else, and you don't get the spotlight on you, right? You
Yeah.
get the spotlight, boom, right in your forehead, right? All the little things come rolling out. Why are you a procrastinator? Where did that come from? Why do you have a fear of rejection? Where did that come from? Right? What are your fears? Why are they your fears? I mean, it was a powerful, powerful transformation for me. That was
Mhm.
45.
Yeah.
That was the turning point for me, the absolute turning point.
Mhm. It's a really beautiful. So I've noticed a couple of things through your story of these
Mm-hmm.
powerful women who have showed up in spaces who
Yes,
have had the same message, and it is that of like advocacy for those who are vulnerable,
yes,
right? In different ways and in different spaces, but the message is the same every time, right?
yeah,
How are we advocating for someone who is vulnerable?
yes.
And the realization that you were just talking about you can't coach without needing a coach.
Oh, yeah.
It is, and what it is about realizing and welcoming that we cannot do this life alone.
No, no, no.
That's all it is. It's this
Yes,
beautiful
yeah,
connection with another human or group of humans, however it shows up in your world. But it is about connecting and realizing we can ask for help. We
yes,
can be reflections for each other, but we do it
yes,
together and not alone.
exactly. And for anybody is trying to manifest, and they think they're going to manifest alone, to your point, there is always, that's not the way it's going to work. It's good. There are people that are, and I say this, that are chains in your link of good. They're your link. They're your link in your chain of good all along the way. And I can literally, there are so many. There are
Mhm.
so many now. There are so many. links that I have added on that were in my chain of good,
Mm-hmm.
like my connections that, you don't have to have money to do this or this. All you need is one divine connection. All you need is one divine connection. And
Yes.
I've had so many now, and I get it. So when I talk about manifestation and abundance, no, I wasn't born with money. In fact, the actual opposite, right? But I did have some powerful divine connections that I saw, looked at, and paid attention and
Yes.
seized the opportunity.
And that is so important. And I think when people are in a place where they are feeling scarcity and
Yeah.
fear and lack, it can be really hard to see those things in our lives, but it's the evidence, right? Our
Yes.
human brains need this evidence to know that it's real, right? That
Yeah.
these connections are real. And it's a great exercise when you're in that space to do that, to look back and think about, when did people show up in my life, at
Yes.
what points, and what was that divine connection, what
Right.
was that divine intervention piece of that
Yes.
person, even
Yeah.
if it didn't feel like it at the time.
Exactly. What
Yeah.
was the outcome? What was the outcome of that divine connection? And it could be so fleeting as just a word or two, or a phrase, or a quote that stayed with you. Because I've had even that, right?
Mm-hmm.
A quote, um, failure is a powerless concept. As long as I do my best and pursue a righteous cause, I cannot fail.
Mm-hmm.
One of my physicians told me that. It stuck with me. And I don't know where that person is. But boy, that changed me. But I didn't realize how much, because I put it on my email signature line. And so many people would come up to me and say, as long as I pursue a righteous cause, I cannot fail. And people say, you just don't know how much that signature line changed me. And I'm like, wow, it changed me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
You
it
just don't
can
know.
be, yeah, we don't know. And
Mm-mm.
it is those flashes, right?
Yes.
That when we look back over the trajectory, you're like, oh, that, like, you can pull up the sensoriness of when
Yeah.
that entered into your space, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes. And it is getting into those moments and trusting those moments of, well, I have that much memory around it for a
Yeah.
reason.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I doing with this? I'm supposed to do something with this. It may not be now, but I am,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I started getting way more intentional, way more intentional. At 45, I like to say I went in. Like all of a sudden, the light bulb really came on. It was coming on. I had it on a dimmer, right?
Yep.
But boy, it flicked on, and I was like, wait a minute. Like, I am the creator of my life. And when I pay attention and I seize the opportunity that's laid before me, magic happens. Whether I like the way the opportunity was presented or not, that you got to
Yes.
get out of your own way.
Yeah. And that one can be really challenging. It's actually what I have it right in front of me, right?
Mm-hmm.
This or something better make manifest in divine time and form. And for someone who has lived like in her brain, I'm talking about myself, I have lived in my brain for the
Yeah.
majority of my life. Like, I've
Yes.
been able to feel when things come along, but I still go into the rational, into my brain.
Yes.
And so I'm always constantly trying to create the form, because it's that's the thing. And speaking of, when we hear a line, when we hear a
Yes.
quotation, I was on a call with a mentor of mine on Monday,
Mm-hmm.
and she asked the question, when you say out loud how you serve people, where do you feel it in your body?
Nice.
And so I actually said it out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And for the first time, I felt it in my root. and in my
Mm.
sacral region. It had completely shifted where I felt it. And
Mm-hmm.
then she said, everything that you desire already exists, and you are only calling it in. But
Yes.
that means you are the instrument and it moves through you. And I have heard that 10 million times,
Right. Exactly.
but it was that moment where it finally clicked,
Correct. And that's
right?
what happens, right? You can
Yes.
hear something a million times, but then there's one time that for some reason it shifts and just anchors.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why that is, because they say until the teacher is ready, until the student's ready, the teacher will appear at that. I don't know if that's it. I really don't. But I do know that it anchors. Like, why didn't it anchor at 23? Why at 45? Right?
Yeah.
But it didn't. But
Yeah.
once it anchored at 45, the next 10 years, it was exponential. My journey was exponential. That's all I can say in this moment. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything started to just come together like really fast, like you see on a movie. It's just warp speed. And
Yeah.
and I've had people call me and say, "Dear God, what happened to you? Like you went from 0 to 5,000. It felt like overnight to them. I'm still living the journey. They're not seeing me, but maybe once a year or something. So to
Mm-hmm.
them, it looks like 0 to 60, right? It is still fast because I know it. I know it was fast, but it clicked, it anchored, it concretized.
Yes.
And when it did, I became super intentional about getting the formula to charm.
Yeah. That is really powerful. And I wonder if it's a connection of being like living in your body long enough
Mm-hmm.
to be able to actually be present in it.
Yes.
And I will say, I think that that is one of the gifts of perimenopause and menopause
Mm.
is that it forces you back into your body.
Body. It
Yeah.
does, right?
Yes.
And
And when,
illness does the same thing.
yes, absolutely. Illness does anything that
Yes.
forces you
Yes.
to be actually in this
Ah,
body
yeah.
makes a huge difference because we're
Right.
so programmed to do everything from the
Out
brain.
there. That's
Yeah.
right.
Outside of ourselves or up here.
Right.
And it is that deep anchoring into this flesh experience
Yes.
that allows you to have more resources,
Yes. Agreed.
right?
Totally agreed. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's face it, I mean, does anybody want to be ill? No, but it does force you into your body. And I'm very thankful for CMV because I became so intentional. I was looking for different herbs to take, like,
Yeah.
all kinds of naturopathic things to take to strengthen my immune system and get it back on track. And I always have from then on. I don't get sick very often because
Mm-hmm.
now I'm very intentional about my health. It's
Yes.
very important to me, right?
And you know the signals. You
Yes,
can now listen differently,
exactly.
right? You actually listen to, I heard you say, and I did it myself. I
Hmm.
ignored
Oh,
everything.
yeah,
I
totally.
ignored all the messages. I ignored all the signals. I ignored
Yes,
all the signs.
everything. I
Yes.
mean, it was when they told me how ill I was. She was like, "You really are ill." She said, "These titers, like the titers were ridiculous. They should be 0. They were like 100,000." She was like, "You should not be." Well, I wasn't walking. By the time I got there, I wasn't walking. I mean, that's crazy. Who
And
does that?
scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. And so many people do.
Yeah.
And so many people do, especially when they are in caregiving positions,
Yeah.
because that is the narrative of success,
Yes.
that you do everything for everybody else at your own peril and at cost to yourself. And that's what
Absolutely
actually makes you successful.
right.
Right.
And I no longer believe that. I
Yeah.
no longer preach that. I preach the opposite.
Yes.
Totally the opposite. And selfish gets a bad rap. Selfish is just care of self. The suffix
Yes.
ish is just care of. That's
Yes,
it.
totally.
Care of
I
self.
and I frame it as full of self,
Yes,
right? We
absolutely.
are giving to we oh, like isn't that what we want? We want to
Yeah,
be full of ourselves.
selves. Exactly.
Otherwise,
That's
what are we
exactly right.
doing?
Right.
Yes.
I mean, it's so simple. Every single time they say, put your mask on first on the plane, and God knows I'm on the plane all the time. Every time they say that, I exhale because they're saying, care for yourself first, or else
Yes.
you will lose consciousness without that oxygen at that altitude.
Yes.
Quickly put your mask on so you can help somebody less fortunate than you. Care for yourself. And so it hits me every time. Every time they say it, I exhale. I go, thank you, Spirit, for that
Yes.
for that reminder.
Yes.
It's necessary.
It is necessary. It absolutely is. And again, my mentor was just dropping all kinds of wisdom
With them, yeah.
on Monday. But and again, I've heard her say this 1,000 times, and it's that you have to be able to receive more
Yes,
than you give.
you do.
You do. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not, and again, especially for humans who are in these caretaking roles,
Yeah, yeah.
it's the narrative that we have that has been embedded in us for
Editing.
so long
Right,
is that we get, no, you give, you give until you're
right,
exhausted and then you
right,
just keep going anyway. And
right.
it's such the opposite that when you let yourself receive,
Yes.
but that becomes like an atrophied muscle
Mm-hmm.
that we haven't used. And so opening up
Mm-hmm.
to reception, yeah, it feels uncomfortable.
Comfortable. It does.
Yes. Yeah.
It does feel uncomfortable, actually, but not anymore.
Yes.
When when you get it and you want to be effective, like I wanted Charm to be all that she could be on the planet, right?
Yes.
All that I came here to be, because I'm going to leave here empty. So all I came here to be, I wanted to be that. And so I knew I had to receive. If these divine interventions come in and say, I'm giving you a complete free nursing school education, I couldn't just get up and say, well, I could, but it didn't work. I couldn't, but I could have behaved badly, right? I could have said, don't talk to me like that. And I could have been out. But no, because I want to be all that Charm can be in this lifetime. I want everything that's downloaded into me, the Spirit wants me to give to the planet, because it's only about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Truth be told, it's
Yes.
about that. I've got to care for myself. I've got to be the best version of myself to be able to do that. And then I feel the best. I feel amazing.
Yes.
When I've cared for myself, I feel healthy. I feel wealthy. I feel wise. I'm able to give all that is due to you. Like we're co-creating for this time, this
Mhm.
moment. I
Yes.
make sure that I'm good, that I've taken care of myself so that I can give to you and to the audience. And in turn, it comes right back to me. I hear things from you. I get this right. I co-create, we co-create together. It's a win-win, as they say. But all I'm saying is I I feel good taking care of myself now.
Yes.
I didn't always. It was just like you said, you got a bad rap, right? If you take care of others and you fall down exhausted at the end of the day, you're the hero. But guess what? You burn out, you have
Yes.
nothing to give, and now you're really actually not doing what you were called to do because you're exhausted, burned out, and all of that. And
Yes.
that's happened to me 3 times. I've had burnout 3 times, so I know.
Yes.
And
And
burnout
it
is not
has happened and I have been there too.
it's not pretty.
It is not pretty. So tell us a little bit about your course. So what are
Yes.
like 3 things that people really take away from that course?
When they talk, so Spirit, could have given me anything as far as a life coach, as far as a niche, right? I thought it was funny that Spirit gave me abundance and money because I told you
Mhm.
right? But it could have been relationships, it could have been anything, right? But what started happening for me is I started manifesting wealth. Oh, from 45 on, miracles just kept ensuing, and I said, Spirit, you're telling me something here. You're literally wanting me, this is where you want me to focus. Okay, so work with me on this. Let's see what we're doing. And as a result, I was coached around my own fears around money and wealth. I had a lot of fears, but yet still, I told you, I was chasing after, I would travel the earth, right, to make more money. So I wanted more money, but it always eluded me. Why was that? Where was the disconnect? I didn't know. What I learned was I had my own fears around money. And my own fears around money came from childhood. Then I realized my parents always fought over money. Always. It was such a source of pain and frustration that I was afraid to be home if money came up. Like deathly afraid, because I knew it was going to break out in an all-out war. Things were going to be thrown around. It left me broken when it came to money, to the point where I didn't want to hear about it, talk about it, look at it. But I didn't know that. But that's what was in me. So you can't manifest something you're afraid of. You can't manifest something you don't like.
Mm-hmm.
You can't manifest something you avoid. So that was one of the money types that started being poured into me. Mine was first, the
Mm-hmm.
avoider. What are your money types? Avoider, you got the monk, the money monk. Money is bad, it's evil, it's the root of all evil. It's the reason for all of our problems, that money. But yet still, you're going out every day saying, I'm starting my business and I want money, but you subconsciously feel like money is evil. Not a good combination. They don't fit, it's not congruent.
Mm-hmm.
The avoider, this the spender, spends it as soon before you get it, you've already spent it. Your paycheck is in 2 weeks, you've already thought all the way through. How are you going to blow through it the very second it hits the bank? That's the spender. And the hoarder. The hoarder has money, never circulates it to their own detriment. I always like people to think about Scrooge. Think about Ebenezer Scrooge. He was wealthy, but he would allow his own little nephew to die instead of at least paying for the child's health care, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the hoarder. Their money paralyzes them. They cannot circulate it. They're so fearful of losing it. So that's the first thing you learn about in the course. One of the first things you learn about is that what is your money type? The other thing you learn about is what I was just saying. You can't attract or manifest from a low vibrational space. So I have a vibrational scale, and I made it. Yeah, there's many of them out there. I made mine,
Yeah.
and at the bottom at 1, it's like death. 2 is anger. 3 is fear. And you go up the scale. You can only manifest good at 7 or above. Very simple, but it's magic. So if you think that you can manifest if you think that you can live at a 4 where life is okay, and you're going to manifest wealth, you're going to work and you're going to have a hole in your pocket all the time, but you won't know why. The car always breaks down, it's always something. You can
Mm-hmm.
never get ahead. You do, then you don't. Then you do, then you don't. So you wait for your taxes every year. This is the year, my taxes, I'll use my taxes, I'll do this. It's always something because of the vibrational space that you actually sit at. I was lucky. I sit at around gratitude, but I've always been that since I was a kid. I just call that luck. There's no such thing. But in this
Mm-hmm.
moment, I call it that. Because again, I didn't know until I was 45, and I started really being intentional. Like I said, I was listening to The Secret. I was listening to Florence Scovel Shinn. I was listening to Wayne Dyer, Louise Hay. There was always something impressing my subconscious so that I would start to shift. I
Yes.
got very intentional. So there's work to be done if you want to manifest wealth, if you want to be abundant in all areas of your life. That's another thing I teach people, is that your life is a life wheel, right? That's very simple information. Relationships, career, spirituality, all of that. They've got about 8 parts of the
Mm-hmm.
pie. Mine was around, once you stabilize one, the others start to stabilize, right? Because usually if you're broke, some of the other parts of the life wheel aren't very stable either. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
way it works,
Yeah.
right? You're probably in a career that isn't going very well, that you don't like. It just, all the other parts. But once you stabilize one, the others start to stabilize. Spirit just gave me finances. That's what I got. And that's the one that I've been able to literally live it, breathe it. Now I have a 7-figure net worth, just do a lot of different things around money, and I've helped other people do the same. And so that's the one I focus on because that's the one I have the gift in. But it could have been any of the others. So those are just a few things. The vibrational energy, where do you sit? Because it's very important. Then we teach you how to raise that energy level. But the awareness is key because you're wondering what's wrong. Why I just got $10,000 and now I don't have anything. Well, if you sit at a vibrational energy level of 4, it's not going to stay.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a money monk, you don't want money. You think you do, but you don't. Did
Yeah.
you know that? I didn't know that. But the minute somebody hears the message, and I'm happy for the listeners that hear it, the minute they hear the message, the awareness is key.
Yes. Yes. And awareness is so key. And while you were speaking, I was like, oh, avoider, that's me. When you were telling your story, it made me think, because this is something I've been circling around for a little while. And it was when I was younger, money made me feel small. It made
Mm,
like seeing what everybody else had, and if I didn't have that, it made me feel small. It made me feel not good enough. It made me feel all of the themes that have been
yes,
working themselves out through this transitional time in my life. So of
yeah,
course, I am an avoider. Um,
yes,
yes, and awareness that once you plant that seed of awareness, right, and you just keep pouring love onto that seed of awareness,
yes.
it will
Pouring
start to
love, I
grow.
like that. Yes,
Yeah.
because there's techniques and things like that in the course to help you. Because of course, awareness is not, that's just the beginning, right? Awareness that you sit at a 5 or 6. Like my favorite one that people don't understand is hope, right? They're like,
Yeah.
hope should be so much higher. I said, yeah, but it's not. Because think about the fact that with hope lies anxiety. I hope it's going to happen.
Yes.
There's a seed of anxiety, and I'm not talking about the hope around illness, right? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actual hope, where you hope this, instead of
Yes.
setting an intention and believing and receiving, period, done, over. Because you
Yeah.
know that this is an abundant universe and that abundance is your birthright. So you need to come into alignment with your abundance. Everybody's journey is different. Just like I said, I had to come into alignment with Charm. I had to know who she was and then come into alignment with her and start to flow and be on the path that has been set for Charm. Once I did that, abundance was easy. And that's why Louise Hay says that money is the easiest thing in the world to manifest. And I remember when I first heard that, it angered me. I was like, how
Mhm.
dare she say that?
Yep.
But she's kind of right.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
took me 5 years to say, okay, Louise, yeah, maybe you're right. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't take you working. It takes you coming into alignment with who you are, what your purpose to do, and coming into alignment with some of these divine connections. They're there. There are people that need exactly who you are and what you bring to the planet, and they have a divine connection to introduce you to that person or whatever that is. You just
Yes.
have to stay open.
And that's where your true abundance lies, is
Yes,
knowing that you are a spark of the divine.
yes,
You were meant to be here to bring all of the wisdom and medicine that is in
yes,
you. That is your abundance, and that is why.
yes,
That is why. That is why.
right, right. And when
Yeah.
people, and people at this point, people say, oh, that's who, or, there's that side. But I can tell you, I want to go back to something you said. You said, my head. I'm in my head. Right. I am a Virgo. We are the analytical people of the zodiac. Nobody is in their head more than me. And I'm 7 placements of Virgo. Virgo sun and Virgo rising. So I can't even escape her. Right.
No, yeah.
Right? I can't escape her at any given moment. So if anybody is in their head and had to surrender to the fact that this is true and that all I needed to do to be abundant is finally understand that this is an abundant universe and that I am also abundant and it's my birthright. Once I got that, then it was just up to me to go into the flow, find my flow, find out and come into alignment. And I can't say that enough. Oh,
Yes.
Charmin, what did it mean come into alignment? That's why we break it down. What vibrational energy? The universe is a 10. It's the universe is so abundant.
Yes.
Right. So you see how, the sun comes up, the moon, the stars, the rain. Those are all, yes.
We breathe.
You have to believe that though.
Yes.
And once you do believe it, nothing can stop you. You will continue to evolve. You will continue to shift. You will continue to come into the knowledge of who you are so that you can find your flow and your abundance. It's yours. It's already there, to your point. It's already
Yes.
there. And I know it's not easy, and it wasn't easy for me being a Virgo, but I certainly decided, what do I have to lose?
Yes.
And it
Yes.
was really fun work.
Right. And I want to wrap up with that because I think this has been such a powerful hour. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us and
Absolutely.
letting it be easy and letting it be fun.
Yes.
Right. It's just try to hold on to that because it doesn't have to be so hard and so
No,
serious.
no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And it shouldn't be. It's when the sun is on your face, it's a
Yes.
wonderful feeling. Just keep the sun on your face. It's
Yes.
coming. It's going to come. The sun is going to come up.
Yes. Thank you for sharing your son with us today. I so appreciate it.
You are so welcome. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us on this transformative journey today. Your support means the world to me. If you resonated with our conversations and want to uplift the Transforming 45 community, here's what you can do. 1, subscribe and share. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value here, share it with your friends, family, and anyone seeking inspiration. 2, leave a review. On whatever platform you are listening on, your words can make a significant impact and help others find their way to these transformative stories. 3, connect. Join the conversation on my social media platforms. Follow me at lboat for updates, behind the scenes, and more heart-centered content. And 4, guest recommendations. If you know someone whose story could inspire someone else, reach out and let me know. I love connecting with diverse voices that carry the power to transform lives. Remember, it is your support that is the magic in my mission. Together, we can create a community of empowerment, growth, and healing. Thank you for being part of the Transforming 45 family. Until next time, keep shining your light and embracing your journey.